Elon Musk walked into the courtroom with a calm stride, unaware that a federal decision was about to place him at the center of a national firestorm. Judge John Roberts had prepared a ruling that would ignite outrage, challenge legal precedent, and push the limits of government overreach. At the heart of it all was GROK 3, Musk's latest leap in artificial intelligence. What happened inside that courtroom stunned America, but it was Musk's reaction that no one could have predicted. Make sure to like and subscribe to stay updated with more powerful stories like this. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with tension. On one side, Elon Musk sat in a sleek black suit, his usual confidence barely concealed behind a pair of sharp glasses. His hands rested on the table in front of him, his fingers tapping lightly, but his mind was miles away, focused, on the task at hand. His company, SpaceX, had revolutionized space travel. Tesla had reshaped the automotive industry. But now, it was his latest venture, GROK 3, that had drawn the attention of the highest court in the land. Across from him sat Judge John Roberts, the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court, his expression unreadable. The room was silent, save for the occasional shuffle of papers or the hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. Everyone in the room knew that this wasn't just any case. This was a battle over the future of artificial intelligence, a technology that could change the world as we know it, and Judge Roberts was determined to make a statement. "Mr. Musk," the judge began, his voice measured, authoritative, "we've heard your arguments, and we've seen the potential of GROK 3. But it's also clear that your ambitions have led to actions that can no longer be ignored." Musk's eyes flicked up, meeting the judge's gaze for the first time. There was a flicker of something. Was it amusement? Disbelief? No one could tell. He leaned forward slightly, his hands folding together, ready for whatever came next. What came next was not what anyone had anticipated. Judge Roberts paused, letting the weight of his words settle in the room. "You've pushed the boundaries of innovation, but with it, you've crossed a line. The fine for your actions, your decision, to move forward with GROK 3 without proper oversight, is $100,000. The words landed like a bomb. A fine? For a man who routinely dealt with billions in investments? It seemed trivial, almost absurd, but the implications were far from it. The court had set a precedent. Musk's expression didn't change. If anything, it became even more unreadable. Was this just a minor inconvenience? Or was the judge about to ignite a conflict with one of the most powerful men in the world? The audience leaned forward, the reporters scribbling notes furiously. This was far from just a courtroom hearing. It was the beginning of a battle for the future of tech, regulation, and freedom. Musk's legal team shifted uneasily in their seats. They had prepared for a ruling, sure, but not for something so personal. Was it a message? A warning? Or had Judge Roberts truly underestimated the force that Musk represented? Your company's unchecked growth has raised concerns, not just within the government, but among citizens. People are beginning to fear the technology you create, and the rapid deployment of GROK 3 has only heightened those fears, Roberts continued. His tone was steady, but there was an undeniable edge to it. This fine is to hold you accountable for the consequences your actions have had on national security and the public trust. The room was still, except for the occasional murmur among the reporters. Musk remained silent, but his jaw tightened slightly, just enough for anyone paying attention to notice. He had heard the criticisms before, and he had learned to ignore them. But now it felt different. It wasn't just the media or activists or even his competitors who were taking shots at him. It was the judicial system itself, one that wielded the power to change the very course of his career. A rhetorical question loomed in the air, unspoken but evident to everyone watching. Could Musk really be brought down by a $100,000 fine? Was this the true extent of the legal system's power over him? Or was this simply the first shot in a much larger battle? And then Musk spoke. His voice was low, calm, but the tension in the room grew palpable as every word seemed to hang in the air. "I disagree with the ruling," he said, his gaze fixed firmly on Judge Roberts. "GROK 3 is the future, and if I have to pay this fine to continue pushing the boundaries of innovation, I will. But make no mistake, this is not the end. This is just the beginning." The court fell into an uneasy silence. Musk's words were not those of a man who had been defeated. They were those of someone who had just begun to realize the scale of what he was about to face. As the judge prepared to speak again, no one could have predicted what would happen next. Musk had just entered a war he never expected to fight. The question remained: would his power be enough to challenge the highest court in the land? Or was this the beginning of a new era of accountability for tech giants? The courtroom doors slammed shut as Musk exited, flanked by his legal team. The moment the doors closed behind him, a murmur of disbelief ran through the room. The fine wasn't the issue. It wasn't the $100,000. It was the defiance. Musk had made it clear that he wasn't going to back down. Not in this arena, not to anyone. His words hung in the air like a challenge, leaving the courtroom charged with an undeniable tension. The media, of course, had already picked up on the drama. Headlines flashed across screens across the nation. Musk fights back against Judge Roberts, the court battle he never expected. In Silicon Valley, investors held their breath, wondering how the controversy would affect Musk's empire. Was this just another power move? Or was it something more? A new form of rebellion? The questions were endless, but there was one truth that everyone in the courtroom knew. Elon Musk was not one to be easily defeated. Back at the Supreme Court, Judge Roberts sat in his chamber, reviewing the transcripts of the day's hearing. His hands gripped the papers tightly. Was this truly just about the fine? Or was something deeper at play? Musk's refusal to accept the ruling sent a message louder than any court decision ever could. As the dust settled, it became clear that the fine was never about the money. It was a symbol of power, a symbol of control, and perhaps, most importantly, a symbol of resistance. On the outside, Musk's reaction was seemingly calm. A tweet here, a statement there, but behind the scenes, the pressure was mounting. His team began working overtime, gathering all the resources they could to fight back against what they considered an unfair, unwarranted punishment. Lawyers, strategists, and tech experts flooded Musk's offices, all focused on overturning the decision. But none of them could deny that the real battle was already underway, and it was one that Musk might not be able to win with sheer willpower alone. "GROK 3 will change everything," Musk told his team one late night, as the glow from his computer screen lit his face. "And they're not going to stop me now. They can fine me, threaten me, but I'm not going to back down. Not this time." But as Musk prepared for the legal battle that was sure to follow, Judge Roberts wasn't sitting idly by. Behind closed doors, he had started to build his case. The fine had been a warning, a first strike. But Roberts was determined to see this through. He wasn't going to let Musk's defiance become a symbol of unchecked power. As he prepared for the next move, he knew one thing for certain. This wouldn't end with just a fine. It was only the beginning. The nation was watching. Would Musk's resistance break the system, or would Roberts' determination prove that no one was above the law? The media frenzy had reached a fever pitch. Every move Musk made was scrutinized, every tweet analyzed. He had become the story. But what few outside the courtroom realized was the impact this battle had on the tech industry at large. Musk was not just fighting for himself, he was fighting for the future of artificial intelligence and the very nature of innovation. If he lost, it wouldn't just be his loss. It would be a blow to the entire sector. Musk's public statements became more pointed as the days wore on. "The establishment doesn't want progress," he told a room of reporters. "They want control. They want to dictate the future. But that's not how innovation works. The boldness of his words only added fuel to the fire. The public's reaction was split. Some rallied behind Musk, seeing him as the last great visionary pushing against an outdated system. Others sided with Judge Roberts, believing that Musk's actions were a threat to the very fabric of society. The divide grew wider by the day, with people across the nation watching intently to see what would happen next. Musk's legal team was already preparing their appeal, but the road ahead was far from easy. The stakes had been raised. The fight wasn't just about a fine anymore, it was about control over the future of technology. And if Musk lost, it could send a chilling message to every tech giant that dared to challenge the status quo. As the day of the appeal drew closer, it was clear that the tension between Musk and Roberts was only going to escalate. Each side was digging in, preparing for a clash that would reverberate far beyond the courtroom. The question now was simple: who would emerge victorious in this battle for the future? The day of the appeal arrived faster than anyone anticipated, and with it came an overwhelming sense of anticipation. The courtroom was once again filled to capacity, but this time the stakes were higher. This wasn't just a hearing, it was a showdown. Elon Musk stood at the front of the room, his usual calm demeanor now replaced with a sharp, almost unshakable determination. His legal team, armed with mountains of paperwork, took their places, ready to argue their case against the fine. Across the room, Judge Roberts entered, his face betraying no emotion. He had seen Musk's defiance, heard the bold words, and witnessed the media circus that had surrounded the case. But today was different. Today, Roberts was ready to take the next step, prepared to make a statement not only about Musk's actions, but also about the future of regulation. "Mr. Musk," Roberts began, his voice as steady as ever, "you've made it clear that you will not accept this fine. You've challenged the ruling in every possible way. But make no mistake, this is not about you. This is about the future of technology. The decisions we make today will impact the direction of the entire tech industry." Musk stood tall, his eyes locked with the judge's, but there was no trace of fear or doubt in his gaze. This was his fight, and he wasn't going to back down. He had faced down billion-dollar projects, corporate takeovers, and a media landscape that seemed intent on tearing him down. But this was different. This wasn't just about money or power. It was about the very essence of innovation. His legal team had prepared every angle, every argument. But Musk knew that the true battle wasn't going to be won on technicalities. It was about something deeper. It was about who controlled the future. "Your Honor," Musk began, his voice cutting through the tension in the room, "I didn't create GROK 3 to challenge the system. I created it to advance humanity, to help us understand the world in ways that were never before possible. And yet, you choose to punish me for it. You fine me for progress. You fine me for looking beyond the constraints of today and towards the possibilities of tomorrow." His words echoed in the room, and for a brief moment, there was silence. His legal team sat motionless, knowing that Musk's words had the power to turn the tide. But Roberts, ever the disciplined judge, remained unmoved. "This is not about punishing progress," Roberts replied, his tone unwavering. "It is about ensuring that progress doesn't come at the expense of the public good. The consequences of unchecked innovation can be far-reaching, and your company has crossed a line." The tension in the room was palpable. Musk's supporters watched from the back of the courtroom, eager to see how the tech mogul would handle the situation. The nation was watching too, eyes glued to live streams, social media feeds exploding with opinions, analysis, and predictions. Everyone had a stake in this battle. If Musk won, it would be a victory for innovation. If Roberts prevailed, it would be a message that even the richest, most powerful figures in the world could be held accountable. As Musk's legal team presented their arguments, it became clear that they were playing to a larger audience. This was more than a case. It was a statement that Musk's empire would not be swayed by outdated laws or a system that was slow to adapt. His words in the courtroom resonated beyond the walls of that room. They were the words of a man willing to challenge the very foundations of power. But Roberts wasn't done. He had prepared for this. He knew that Musk's words, no matter how powerful, could only carry so much weight. And so as Musk's team wrapped up their arguments, Roberts began his response. "Mr. Musk," Roberts said, his voice calm but carrying an undeniable force, "I understand your desire to push boundaries, but the law exists for a reason. The government's role is to protect the public, not to allow unrestrained growth without oversight. GROK 3 may be revolutionary, but it has the potential to cause far-reaching consequences. You may have created this technology with good intentions, but the risks are too great to ignore." Musk's response came quickly, his voice cutting through the judge's words with precision. "Then perhaps it is the law that needs to change," he said, standing tall. "The world is changing, Judge Roberts, and if we don't adapt, we risk being left behind." The courtroom erupted into whispers, but it was clear that Musk had struck a chord. His words weren't just about this case. They were a rallying cry for anyone who believed in progress, in the power of technology to change the world. But Roberts wasn't moved. He had made his stance clear, and he was prepared to defend it. "That may be," he said, his voice cutting through the rising noise. "But the law will not bend to suit anyone's personal agenda, not even yours, Mr. Musk." The appeal was far from over, but it was evident that the battle lines had been drawn. The question on everyone's mind was no longer just about the fine. It was about who would define the future of technology. Musk or Roberts? Innovation or regulation? The courtroom was now more than just a battleground of words. It had become a stage for something much bigger. A defining moment for both sides, one that would echo far beyond the legal confines. Judge Roberts' ruling was expected to come soon, but what no one could have anticipated was the sudden twist in the case that would set the entire nation on edge. Musk's legal team had prepared for a lengthy back and forth, a drawn-out battle that could last weeks, but they were blindsided when a surprise witness was called to the stand. A former associate of Musk's, a high-ranking executive from his company, took the oath and stepped forward. It wasn't someone they had anticipated, and the shock on Musk's face was unmistakable. "Your Honor," the witness began, their voice calm, yet heavy with weight, "I was a part of the team that worked directly on GROK 3. The project, as it stands now, does not pose the kind of risks the court has suggested. In fact, it has the potential to revolutionize entire industries, from healthcare to education." Musk's eyes narrowed. This wasn't just about the technology anymore. It was personal. The executive had left the company under ambiguous circumstances, months earlier, and now, here they were, seemingly siding with Judge Roberts. But why? What had happened behind the scenes? What was this person really after? The courtroom buzzed with energy. Journalists typed feverishly, updating the live feeds. Musk's legal team, stunned but composed, quickly adjusted their strategy. If this witness had come to testify against Musk's character, it could change the entire course of the case. "Are you suggesting, then," Judge Roberts asked, his tone still measured, "that the risks associated with this technology have been exaggerated?" The witness nodded solemnly. "That's correct. I can personally attest to the careful measures we took to ensure safety and privacy. This isn't some rogue project. This is the future of technology, something that could benefit everyone." The tension in the room thickened. Musk's supporters in the audience looked on with bated breath, trying to make sense of the sudden turn of events. What did this mean for Musk's chances of winning? Could someone from his own team have turned against him? And perhaps more. Importantly, was this witness telling the truth? Or was there something more sinister at play? Judge Roberts' gaze never wavered from the witness. He had seen this kind of maneuver before. Witnesses who seemed to change sides in an attempt to sway the jury. But something about the sincerity in the witness's eyes made him pause. Was this just another part of Musk's strategy, or had the tides genuinely shifted? After the witness finished their testimony, Musk's legal team was quick to respond. "Your Honor," one of Musk's attorneys said, standing up, "we have never denied that there are risks with any new technology, but we have also made it clear that we are doing everything in our power to mitigate those risks. This witness is not privy to the full scope of the project and is not a reliable source, but Roberts was already processing the information." It was clear that the case had taken an unexpected turn. The fine, the charges, everything. It was no longer just about one person's actions or intentions. It was about the future of innovation itself. Could the system adapt to the rapid changes of the tech world? Or would it continue to rely on outdated structures that couldn't keep up with the pace of progress? As the day wore on, Musk's legal team pressed forward with their counterarguments, but the atmosphere had shifted. The court was no longer a place for just facts and figures. It was now a battleground for ideologies, for visions of the future. Musk, ever the optimist, had always believed in the potential of technology to break boundaries. But the question now was whether the system could allow for that kind of freedom. Was it worth pushing the boundaries if it meant risking everything? Musk, watching the proceedings with a steely gaze, realized that he might have underestimated the lengths to which the legal system would go to ensure control. The witness, the surprise twist. It was clear that this wasn't just a fight over a fine anymore. It was a fight for the very future of technological advancement. And in that moment, Musk understood that the next steps he took would define not just his own fate, but the future of innovation itself. The question wasn't just how much he was willing to risk, it was how far the world was willing to let him go. The clock was ticking. The court was about to make its decision, and no one could predict the outcome. The courtroom fell into an eerie silence. The clock seemed to slow as everyone waited for Judge Roberts to deliver his verdict. Musk stood at the center, surrounded by his legal team, his posture tense, but his face masked with a quiet determination. The events of the past few hours, the surprise witness, the unexpected twists, all of it had led up to this moment. Now all that remained was the final ruling. Musk had prepared for every possible outcome, but there was a nagging feeling in his gut. He knew this battle wasn't just about the fine. It was about the future of his vision, the future of technology, his legacy. And the stakes had only grown higher as the trial had progressed. Every word, every decision, had brought him closer to a crossroads. If Roberts ruled against him, it could send a message to the entire tech world. Even the most ambitious innovators could be silenced by the system. Judge Roberts cleared his throat, his gavel tapping once on the wooden desk, a signal that the moment had come. "After careful consideration, I have arrived at my decision." The room was so quiet that the sound of a pin dropping would have been heard. All eyes were on Roberts, who paused, seemingly weighing the gravity of his words. His gaze swept across the courtroom, from Musk's team to the spectators, and finally, to the defendant himself. "Mr. Musk," Roberts began, his voice measured yet carrying undeniable weight, "the case before this court has raised important questions about the balance between progress and accountability. GROK 3 represents a significant leap in technology, but it also presents risks that must not be ignored. The fine imposed earlier remains in place as a reminder that even the most revolutionary ideas cannot operate in a vacuum. However, in recognition of your commitment to addressing these concerns, I am reducing the fine to $25,000. This reduction acknowledges your efforts to work within the framework of the law while pursuing innovation." A wave of disbelief washed over the courtroom. Musk's supporters, who had been holding their breath throughout the trial, exchanged glances. Had the unthinkable happened? A reduction of the fine? Was this a victory? Or was it simply a concession in a battle that Musk could never truly win? For a moment, Musk didn't react. He was processing the ruling, weighing its significance. A fine of $25,000 was still a significant blow, but it was far less than the original $100,000. More importantly, it was an acknowledgement that innovation and regulation could coexist. That, despite the risks, Musk's vision was something that could, and should, be allowed to grow. But there was more to the ruling than just the fine. Roberts continued, his tone now softer, almost reflective. This decision is not just about this case. It's about the future. Technology has the power to change the world, but we must ensure that it is used responsibly. Mr. Musk, you are no stranger to controversy, but you are also a leader in this field. I trust that you will continue to push the boundaries of what is possible, but I also trust that you will do so with the knowledge that the law exists to protect us all. As Roberts finished speaking, the room erupted into a mixture of applause and murmurs. The tension that had gripped the court for so long began to dissipate, but it was clear that the ramifications of this ruling would be felt far beyond the walls of the courthouse. Musk's legal team stood, their faces a mixture of relief and contemplation. It was not the complete victory they had hoped for, but it was a victory nonetheless, a sign that perhaps the system could evolve, just as Musk had always hoped. Musk, standing tall, turned to face his legal team. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of gratitude. This battle had been hard fought, but it was far from over. There were still many hurdles to overcome. But today he had won something far more important than money. He had won a small but significant concession for innovation, a message that technology and progress had a place in the world of law. As Musk walked out of the courtroom, the media cameras swarmed, eager to capture his reaction. But Musk, the visionary, was already looking ahead. The ruling may have been a setback, but it would not define him. He would continue to push forward, to break barriers, to challenge the system that tried to hold him back, and as he stepped out into the sunlight, he realized that this was just the beginning. The world had watched this case unfold, and they had seen that even the most powerful forces in the world could be challenged. The future was still in his hands, and he was ready to take it. And with that, the story of Elon Musk and Judge Roberts came to a close, not with a bang, but with a significant step forward. The fine may have been reduced, but the fight for innovation was far from over. This was the turning point. The future was waiting, and Musk was determined to shape it, no matter what.